Welcome everyone to the Serpent Tarot for another pick a card reading. Today's pick a card reading was a viewer request, which is how to accelerate personal and professional growth, to really unblock any of the blockages and to really leverage any of the blessings and opportunities around. And I'm very thankful to the viewer who suggested it. I'm thankful to any viewers who want to suggest topics. I'll get to them as soon as I can when you do. It's wonderful to crowdsource ideas for readings and to make sure that I'm really covering the topics that are helpful for you. And it takes a little less pressure off me to come up with new and innovative ideas about readings as well too. So very grateful for that. No pressure, you don't have to do it. But if you do have something you'd like me to look at, please let me know. I also want, before I go into the pile selection and the structure of the reading, what we're going to be covering in more detail today, I want to do a shout out as well, because there is another pick a card and spiritual channel called Empress Tarot by Gabby Turner, and Gabby at that channel was kind enough to do a shout out for me on her community tab. She let people know that she'd been enjoying my videos and put a connection to one of my playlists, which I'm very, very grateful for. And I wanted to say thank you, but she doesn't have comments turned on her community tab or on her channel, so I couldn't do it directly. But I did want to say thank you. So Gabby, if you are hearing this, thank you so much. That was extraordinarily generous of you. I have checked out your channel. I love it, and I've subscribed because I really like the way you read. So it's very, very touching and very honouring that you should like my work. I don't want anyone listening to this to feel they have to do that on any level to come to this channel. Everybody's welcome, and I hope it helps people who come here, and that's the main purpose of it. But when somebody just does that so completely out of the generosity of their heart, and I don't have any other way of directly saying thank you, I wanted to take the opportunity to do that. So thank you, Gabby. And thank you everybody else for just indulging me to make that shout out in response. I did think about whether to try and do something on my community tab, but to be honest, I don't really know what YouTube rules are around things like that. And the last thing I would want is for it to appear to be in any sense designed or cooked up between us, because it wasn't. I wasn't aware of Gabby before that. Now I'm very happy to be, and as I say, very grateful. So this seemed the best way to say thank you. So I hope, Gabby, that you've heard this. Okay. So now on to the topic. So as I say, the viewer request was to look at personal and professional growth, how to really kind of accelerate that and turbocharge it. And I think that really looks at things like both what are some of the sort of blockages and issues to deal with, and also what are the blessings to leverage. And I want to look at both sides of it. So it's going to be a bit of a reading that sort of starts out with one side being around personal, one side being around professional, and then some looking at how that kind of comes together. Then I'm going to use tarot to look at what are the blockages, issues that need to be addressed in one or either of these areas, and what are the blessings and opportunities in one or either of the areas. And then I'll bring it all together with some other advice from Spirit at the end, hopefully to integrate all the messages that we get. So as I often do with these sorts of readings, I found it works quite well to use different tarot decks for different readings, because people seem to be drawn to different cards, different energies of different decks for particular readings. And I've chosen the Six of Wands as a representation of each of the decks this time, because to me the Six of Wands means victory, it means recognition, it means success. And I think the Six of Wands energy being around would be an indication that one had accelerated personal and professional growth, or both. So the decks that are going to be used in each reading, the first reading is the Dream Vision Tarot. The second reading has the Flights of Fantasy Tarot, and the third reading has the Cute and Creepy Tarot. So you may be particularly drawn to the imagery there, the colours, something like that. You might also be drawn, pile 1 has the Root Chakra Placement Stone, pile 2 has the Sacral Chakra Placement Stone, and pile 3 has the Solar Plexus Chakra Placement Stone. I don't know whether that really corresponds in any meaningful way with what might be in the readings, because I don't know what we're going to get, what these cards are or any others are. But I do think that the foundation of our life, our creativity and our sense of self, is very important to accelerating personal and professional growth. And last but not least, as this was requested some time ago that I put numbers down for piles for the choice, I'm doing that as well too. So maybe the number is something that draws to you. So do whatever you need to do to decide what reading or readings you want to go to. It's of course fine to go to more than one. and you may want to pause the video and contemplate or meditate or something like that before you choose. But once you know, as always, the timestamps will be in the description box below, and I'll see you in the reading. Welcome, pile one, to your reading. So cards here are looking at your personal development, and cards here are looking at your professional development. And so we're starting with what sort of energies are around, both sort of positive and challenging, that you need to consider at the moment. And I actually think there's a little bit of a connection between the personal moving into the professional, but I'll explain that as I go along. We're then going to use a few other oracle cards to combine the energies, but for the moment we're looking at them separately. So I'm going to start with the personal, because I actually think what happens in the personal is going to actually manifest over here in the professional as well in some way. The personal is the ultimate alchemical process. People who've come to this reading are going through a major transformation personally. Some of it may be connecting to past relationships, though it's probably more likely that what's going to happen as you emerge from this process, that some of the past is going to come back to you, and you'll be able to assess what relationships you want to remain in your life and what ones you should shed, because you've shed aspects of it, much like a snake shedding its skin. You've created yourself and you've made yourself new. But at the moment, you're in a position of a little bit of unsureness. You're in a sort of a night area, a kind of, in the alchemical process, there is a process called the nigredo, which is where all the constituent parts of the chemical process that the alchemy is about are brought together, and they are basically reduced in a fire, so to speak, down to their essence. And out of that comes the phoenix, out of that comes the peacock, out of that comes the white rose, all the things that basically provide for development and realization. So that tells me that you, as I say, are going through some sort of a profound change. I would say that there's been something, you could have literally have been in a dark night of the soul type of scenario. It may not have been as significant and severe as that, but certainly there's something from within that is meant to come out that is going to really, I think, accelerate in an incredibly fast rate your personal development, particularly spiritual development, and the sense of your own sense of yourself and sense of your own power. But it's going to come in an unusual way. It's going to come out of the shadows in a way, out of what, maybe even out of a contemplation of the ghosts of the past and the things that haven't worked and the things that you need to purify in some way. It could be through things like therapy. You may go through therapeutic sort of interventions. You may do a real kind of life review on what you've been doing in your life and the choices that you've made. There's something like that where you're a little bit in the dark and you're hearing the song of the future. I'm getting that for some of you, music is going to be very important. Listen to music, listen to lyrics, pay attention to that. There is literally a night song there, and the night song talks about hidden talent. So it's there to remind you who you are and what you could grow into being. And that's part of why I think this connects over to here. I think there's a process you're going through to reclaim who you are and redefine who you are, but it's not going to come through the conventional ways. So even though I've said therapy, if it's therapy, it almost feels like alternative therapy, or that you take what you have from that, but you actually really imbue it with your own self in some way. With telepathy of Theravada, it is literally connecting in with the earth, with the matrix, but in its positive sense, its sort of divine feminine sense. And it's you starting to understand and see something in yourself that is not, it defies rational explanation. So you may well have really strange dreams. You may have sort of things manifesting sort of physically in your house, a bit like a poltergeist, but I don't feel like it's bad or anything like that. It's just something's coming out of left field, something that you didn't expect, a different perspective, a way out of the darkness, a way to bring music and joy, and with a sort of masquerade sort of sense of this card, sort of like the right relationships back from the past so that you can also shed the ones that haven't worked. So anyone who's come to this reading, you are highly spiritual. You're highly dialed in, whether you know it or not. I actually think some of you may not have a clue how dialed in you actually are and how much you're going through processes, and you've probably done this. It's probably actually a talent that you have, a talent to go through an experience, learn from it, take its essential elements out of it, rebalance your life, and then find the next new pathway and the next new you. But if this all feels a little bit lost and a little bit strange, that's a good sign. If you are feeling at the moment a little bit lost about who do I relate to, who do I love, who do I connect with, who do I want to be, how do I present myself in the world, some of you may be feeling almost like you're presenting as being a little bit deranged or a little bit sort of like your head in the clouds or something, but you're not. You're actually downloading a lot of information, a lot of understanding of yourself, and you will come through this because you're ultimately moving that energy, I think, over into your professional world. And that, I think, in a weird way, that's where it first really manifests, and then you realize it about yourself personally. So it sort of goes from there to there, and then it boomerangs back to here, if that makes sense. So I think that this ability and this knowledge and this thinking outside of the box, as they say, left of field, is going to help you create something in your career, whatever your career is, whether it's your own business, whether it's creative, whether you're in an organization and you're looking for the next promotion, but you're literally going to be creating something. You're bringing this energy into manifesting, and you really have a capacity to do that. A new business product, a new business idea, a new approach. You are, in fact, a natural manifester. And this might be partly what you're understanding here. I think that for some of you, you're going to understand something about the patterns of relationships and patterns of things in your personal life. And you're going to have an aha moment where you realize how much you were really the person guiding that, even if it was challenging, that was almost like you guided it so that you could experience more and understand more and accelerate your development on that level. You are, as I say, the natural alchemist, which then becomes the natural manifester, the philosopher's stone, the turning base metals into gold, which is primarily a spiritual analogy, but can literally, in a sense, occur in the 3D world and professionally if you take that energy into there. Now, this is telling me with Joker is Wild that to some degree, once you do that, once you've worked out what it is that you want to do, the new job, the new career, the new leadership role, the new creative product, the new business, you can't lose. Joker is Wild is a fantastic card to get. It basically says, again, it might come in a very unusual way. It could be that you suddenly leave a job because everything's been tumultuous where you are and you're thinking, God, what do I do now? But that actually gives you an idea to manifest something, and it takes you somewhere that you would never have expected to be, for instance. Or it could be that just when you're thinking you're feeling a bit stuck, someone's going to come along with something to get you moving, because I think transporter there is about momentum. Now, some of you may be in logistical professions, in which case, again, if you've got a new business product or idea, you can manifest something and you can't lose. So certainly anybody who's in logistics, transport, travel industry, anything like that, that's a very strong sign that you are going to get things moving again. And certainly I'm feeling with the transport industry, with sort of what's been happening in the world in the last couple of years, there's a sense of momentum coming back in, and it's time for you to take that next step or bring things out. So accelerating your personal and professional growth, in a sense, it's like it really comes to the personal primarily. Once you've really started to understand your own alchemical ability, and you've worked out what from your past is worth keeping and what you shed so that you can move forward and follow the song of your heart and follow your talents, you bring those talents much more out and manifest them in the world. And then I think that proves it to you, as I say. Then you really own this. And from there you have almost a kind of a circle of energy that builds for you over time. So let's bring these two things together. I do actually think they're together, but I feel they're almost sequential in this sort of backwards and forwards thing. But the things I wanted to do to kind of look at like across the board is some astrology energy and then some spiritual energy. And you are highly spiritual, so that will make sense. So I think that you work in a much more material world, a much more 3D type of world, if you know what I mean. But let's see the astrology energy around accelerating your personal and professional growth. What would do that for you? Okay, now usually when I get an aspect, I like to deal out to get two planets, but I've got two planets, and so I'm getting that they are actually the planets involved here. So firstly, I'm going to look at them individually, and then I'm going to see what the opposition is, which I think is a bit of this sort of to and fro here. And when you get this into balance, you'll understand the power that you have. So the moon, I feel, is very much the new ideas, the new concepts, the sort of channeled energy, the things that come out of left field, the new product that you can do and so forth. And then Pluto is the being able to be in the dark night of the soul, the Negredo, going to the underworld, that kind of thing, that revolutionizes and changes and moves you forward. When they're in opposition, there is a bit of a push-pull operating. So one of the things this is telling me is that because you haven't fully understood how powerful you are when you go through change, you sometimes, because of emotional energies, kind of halt it a bit. You put an emotional brake on going through this full process, which then puts a brake on the degree of transformation and degree of power you can have. And Pluto does empower. The phrase for this card is I empower. So it's your own feelings with the phrase I feel with the moon here that may stop you from manifesting your power. So this is very much saying, again, this all goes back to this card. This is very important to this reading. You are an alchemist. Look it up. Understand what it means if you're not aware of alchemy, because, and you don't have to get into all the spiritual woo stuff about it if you don't want to, but understand it as a process that is two things. It is about the evolution of the soul, and that is something that brings out your power, but it's also grounded. I mean, alchemy was what created chemistry. If you are someone who likes the material world a little bit more than what's going on in your emotions and in the spiritual, if that makes you feel a bit more uneasy, alchemy is the perfect connection for you. It's the perfect conceptual framework to work through to understand this process that is natural to you. And I feel like then that bird becomes the phoenix or the peacock. They're the two key sort of energies around alchemy, and they're very, very powerful. So speaking of spiritual power, let's just pull a couple of cards as well about spiritual energies that can connect these two for you and accelerate it for you. Okay, so I think this is telling me, this is really interesting. I think that people who've come here on one level or another, some of your own power and your understanding, particularly of the shadow, you've been somewhere or in situations where that's been kind of taboo. Either you've been in a very scientific environment, a very 3D environment, and anything like this is sort of seen as is self-indulgent at best and deluded at worst, or you've been in very strict religious backgrounds, cultural backgrounds, or something like that. But understanding the power and the taboo when you control it and you understand it, and connecting with your own higher self to do that, is your way to first of all go through this process and then create whatever you want to create personally in your professional life, because your professional life is about manifestation. Your personal life is about alchemy. The two are natural marriage, but there's something, whether it's your own fear of your power, and you may have a fear of your own power with the moon and Pluto opposite. And you may have that in your chart. You don't have to have it in your chart. This may be just picking up an energy, but it could be the fear of the moon, the unknown with Pluto, with the amount of change. You could be fearful of your own power. You could see it as taboo in some way, but connecting to your higher self more and then proving it here. That's what I really feel. I feel you need to prove it here to trust it here. But it has to start here, you prove it here, and then, as I say, the cycle goes on. And I do understand this, Pile 1. There's a little bit of this that rings true to me, in that I like the material world. I like to see the material world around spiritual things. So I can get the energy here, but I feel that you have this profound transformation that's naturally happening in you. If you don't block it yourself, if you don't fear it, then, as I say, the sky's the limit, really. You can really move forward with that. So let's have a look at the tarot. So let's have a look at both. Over here, we're going to put some sort of blockages or issues, and over here, we're going to give blessings and opportunities, just to get a sense about what else is going on here. And this is across both of them. And for you, I think that makes sense anyway, as I say, because this is a cycle. So first of all, blockages and issues. And then over here, we're going to have blessings and opportunities. move these up a little bit further so that you can see them a little bit clearer. Okay, so over here in blockages, there is a blockage that you have, I think, pile 1, around your emotions, around your heart, around connecting. There is a fear, I think, of the emotional, of an emotional overflow. But I do think that that blockage is about to be shifting, and I think it's going to shift anyway. You have to, but something's going to happen unexpected. It could be a new relationship. It could be a twin flame suddenly coming in. It could be someone from your past returning and asking for amends if they haven't behaved properly or something like that. There's something that is going to release that, but you had a blockage around your heart, around, I think, even believing that you were worthy of love. On one hand, you didn't want to be alone. You were frightened of being alone with the 9 of Pentacles reversed, but on the other hand, you felt like you weren't really worthy of having that success and that connection and so forth. There's a lot of mental strain you put around your personal life, your love life, your friendships. And I think you carried a lot of guilt, but I don't think it was you that created things. I think it's just that you tended to take that on with the 10 of Swords. This is saying that, ironically, with the two of Wands reversed and with the 9 of Pentacles reversed, ironically, I feel like that starts and then it moves to that and it alleviates this. You are really kind of there's an energy of opposites operating for you here. I think that what it says is that once you are emotionally happy with yourself and who you are, and you don't need another person to validate you or to feel that you're following somebody's particular way of doing things and belief structures or whatever, that you can actually stand on your own 2 feet, then you will be able to stand on your own 2 feet. You'll be able to come out of this energy of relying too much on other people. But the weird thing about that, I feel, is that's then what brings the right people into your life. Your blockage at the moment is feeling beholden to other people and needing people without working out why it was that you needed them, and worrying about that because you're going through such a profound change to bring you more into touch with your own heart so that you can be moving out of that sort of sense of emotional entrapment. That whole process, this is a good process. It doesn't feel good, part 1. You don't feel good while this is going on. But once you do, you are liberated from that need to be with other people, so that when you are with other people, they're the right people to be with. So again, trust this process, and trust when this strange information comes in or people come in that are showing a different way or a different aspect of you. Trust your own instincts around that, because they'll be good. Over here around blessings, you are ready to really stand in your power. You're ready to be seen. You are very, very talented at what you do. That's part of the reason why you can't lose. Once you've really sorted this out and you believe in yourself a bit more and you don't feel other people's input and other people's viewpoints are so important, you're starting to really believe in yourself. You'll also feel that you can compete, because I think that's the only thing. If you felt lesser than, you're going to start to realize you're not lesser than, and you're prepared to take your incredible energy for manifestation and for creativity into the world. And you will look at the former doubt as a blessing, because it's taught you something. And this is again, and I think that when you achieve with something, then you're going to really, really believe it, and it'll flow back there. I do think that for many of the people who've come here, you're naturally talented, rather than someone who's spent a long time, studying something or learning a craft. I think that some people may have said, you're not a professional in this area, you're not this or you're not that, whatever it might be, but you have a natural capacity to think outside the box and to manifest something different. And you're going to come, once you've owned that about yourself, you're going to come into a leadership type of position around whatever you're doing. And if you're trying to create something that's new, then people going, well, that's not the same and that's not following the form and everything, will actually become the thing that spurs you towards the competition, because you'll start to realize what's different about you is what is powerful about you. You're not following the rules of everybody else. You're not worrying about connecting with other people and their opinions. You're not worrying about upsetting the taboos in some way. Is the very thing that makes you stand strong in competition in some way. Okay, so that's quite a powerful sort of energy. So let's have a look at some supports for you. So we'll start firstly with a couple of general affirmations around your personal and professional growth. Okay, let your past guide you, not decide for you. So this is this card here. And there may be things from your past that are fine and are worth following, but they don't have to be the decision-making point, and you don't have to give up the decision to this to anybody else. And whatever you feel that you need to leave behind, leave it behind, because you are going through a profound transformation. And then once you've got that in order, taking steps in any direction is better than standing still. Remember what you've gone through here. Remember you're very, very strong, and remember what is different about you is fine. Do not let other people's noise get in the way. Move forward. See the time in the dark, in the void, as the very thing that's spurring you on and separating you from cards that are about the traditional, the collective, because you are meant to be an individual. Okay, let's see a creative energy around you. Meditation. Well, that's going back to this. That's saying that's the starting point. Do go within. Don't be scared of going within. Don't be scared of what you see when you meditate. You may see some pretty amazing things when you meditate, actually. And some of them may seem a bit scary or a bit overwhelming. But just let that occur. The unusual, the different, the capacity to be in the dark and find your way in the dark it's part of your birthright. It's part of who you are. And it's deprogramming you, I think, from the views of other people so that you can connect to your higher self. Let's get some crystal chakra affirmations for you. And then I'm going to close out with the Heart Code Oracles for some practical advice as well. Okay, so we've got the throat chakra, which is about communication. And when you are ready, you will be communicating, and with a great deal of fire and power with those wands energies, what you want, what you believe, who you are. Do it when you're ready, because the turquoise crystal that's with throat chakra here gives you purpose and clairvoyance. It means, as I say, you're spiritually way ahead. You can see what's coming, but you do need the purpose. And I think the purpose comes from you personally before it goes into the professional. The affirmations are, I align to my true life purpose. I think that's what you're finding out now. And I utilize my psychic gift of clairvoyance. So pay attention to what you get in meditations. Do not think that stuff is just woo, that you really are getting information, and it really is going to help you be the master manifester over here. And then over here, we move into what is at the foundation of your life. And this is why I think when you create within the 3D, that's when you really start to believe it. The root chakra feels more secure. And with fire agate, we get karma and protection. So you're meant to do this. You're meant to do this. This is something you're in this world to do. And the affirmations are, I am divinely protected, and I clear my karmic debts. So for some of you, that sort of guilt and that sort of stuff in past relationships, it may have just been stuff that you had to go through so that you could be accelerated to the point of having this understanding about yourself, and also to clear karmic debts. But having done that, remember, you don't necessarily have to keep revisiting them. You make the choice from there about what relationships you have. So to close off, I'm going to use a card from each of 3 of the Heart Code Oracles. So the first one I'm going to do is around relationships, to pick up that kind of personal energy. Then I'm going to do well-being here, and then I'm going to do career over there. So firstly, an energy around relationship for you to accelerate your personal development in particular. And we have commitment. I think this is commitment to yourself. This is a solo journey to some degree. After that, you can make decisions about who is right for you in your life, and you can bring the right people in. And I did get the sense that for some of you, ironically, once you separate from everything and you really stand in your individual strength, that's when the right person comes in. If you know that and feel that, you can commit. But I think your first responsibility at the moment, Pile 1, is commitment to yourself. Okay, let's see what energy around your well-being is operating for you. Okay, we've got inflammation. I think that's picking up. There is a lot of energy going on personally, and it's very, very likely that you may find that that has some physical effects. So you could find that you get headaches, you could find that you get muscle aches, you could find that you get skin issues, those sorts of things, anything that's to do with inflammation. So be aware that's part of the process, but there are plenty of things you can do around inflammation. There are teas that you can drink, you can take turmeric. I'm not a doctor, I'm just talking about things that have worked for me, but maybe look into things that can help around inflammation, particularly if you do suffer from something like that. If it's not physically manifesting, then give yourself rest, because it could mean that there is so much going on here and you're downloading so much information that almost your soul becomes inflamed. That's fine once it's moved into your creativity, but while you're still in the process of getting there, it just could get imbalanced in your system. Okay, and last but not least, let's get a card around career for you. We have authentic. And there it is, really, Paul. And there's the key thing. Once you really know who you are, you're unstoppable because you're authentic, because it comes from you. It doesn't come from, avoiding taboo things or the views of others. It doesn't come from the learnings of others. It doesn't come from what others wanted to sort of collaborate with you and constrain you in some way. You are becoming authentically you. You then have the success, because remember, Joker is wild. You can't lose once you've really started to move towards manifesting what you want to do in your career or your business or your creativity. And once you have that, you'll realize the importance of authenticity, and you'll move back into this process, and it becomes I really see it like a DNA helix. It's like you're climbing up the DNA helix in the universe. You're climbing up and up and up, but it's because you really have this down really well once you know who you are, once you're authentic. So I'm really actually very optimistic for you, Pawan. I think this is an amazing time, but I think right now it probably feels a bit overwhelming. But give yourself that time, meditate, look after your sort of health to make sure that you don't feel overheated by it all. And then when you feel ready, think about what you've learnt there that can work there. So I hope that that's helpful. I hope it resonates for you. If so, please like the video and subscribe. And if you feel like sharing, love to hear about it in the comments below. Otherwise, I hope to see you in future readings. Welcome, pile 2, to your reading. So these cards are around your personal development and how to accelerate it, and these are around professional. And it's possible, and I think this may be the case with most of the readings, that there is some connection between the two, or some connecting themes anyway, and we will explore those a little bit further in the reading. But firstly, looking at the personal, there's a couple of things I see here. Or in fact, the first thing that I see, the Lantern Fairy, is about finding a clear solution in the darkness and where there are obstacles. I think that there are obstacles around something, one or more things in your personal life. So this could be around a relationship, it could be around a friendship, it could even be around the concepts that have been inculcated in you by family and so forth, because with the Skull of Stars, which is about infinite possibilities, that sometimes comes up when we've ceased to see all that we are, the breadth of what we are. So it's possible that some of the people who've come to this, friends or family or a loved one, is sort of getting in the way of you becoming who you think you really should be in some way. You're kind of coming up against obstacles where somebody has a different viewpoint and so forth. And what these cards are saying is that you mustn't doubt yourself if that's the case. With the Chakra part of Seahorse, this is an energy of combining your spirit and your soul, and it is basically the transmission of grace, which suggests that things are coming to you psychically, spiritually, within your sort of personal center, within your heart center, that are what are true to you, and you need to be listening to that, particularly as this says, pay attention to the signs. Your guides are trying to communicate with you. The universe is trying to communicate with you, because there is an awareness that you are hitting an obstacle that may be because others have dimmed your light and dimmed your understanding of yourself. The other thing that could be happening is that you've got it into your head that there's one thing and only one way to be happy. So one relationship, one career, one creative project, one spiritual belief or whatever, and you're running up against barriers because it's not delivering what you expected it to do, but you're feeling really obstinate because you thought, well, this is the way, that's it. And you're again not seeing everything. So it's either others are restraining you in some way, pile 2, or you are restraining yourself by being a bit stubborn about things. So the way to accelerate personal development and get unstuck because you feel a bit stuck is to really start to connect to what you're getting sort of spiritually and so forth. what is in your inner knowing, not in the sort of like, these are the 3 things that would make you really successful and feel really popular or whatever, or this is what your family says you need to do by this age to be successful. There's some rule books or something you've either imposed on yourself or others have imposed on you. But Spirit is really trying to kind of get this through to you. And even coming to this reading was part of it, I think. It's like understanding to unblock yourself. You need to understand how much there is in you, that there are infinite possibilities and there is grace coming to you, signs to help you find your way through, to give you that very lantern that the Lantern Fairy has there to get you unstuck. But that's what you have. You have to recognize that you're either listening too much to other people or you are stubborn in some way. And there's a little bit of tough love there, but it's worth knowing because you're so much more than you possibly are giving yourself credit for in either of those scenarios. And I think some of it is because over here around professional life, whether this is in a business or whether it's a job that you have, I think that you have to wear masks quite often. We have the Maven of the Mask. I think you may not feel entirely like you fit in. You might have thought this is the absolutely ideal career for me, but when you get into it, you feel like I'm not getting as far, I'm not progressing as quickly as I want, I don't know why. And you're feeling like you have to wear masks, try different things on. There's nothing inherently wrong with that. This card actually says you can fake it till you make it sort of thing. But I think when we connect it to this energy, it is saying that's fine if you are open to all that you could be. But if it is that you're sort of stuck on a trajectory and you think this is the only way I could be successful. So for instance, I'll give you an example. Say you were starting a YouTube channel and you designed certain types of videos and you wanted to do a particular thing and it just wasn't taking, but kind of anything you did out of left field did get more success, did get more viewership, but you were sort of like, no, this is my core mission, this is what I want to do. That would be not understanding that you can be more flexible and you can wear other masks and you can actually still have success just a bit differently to what you expected. I think others of you, you're in an environment that needs masks because it's interesting we have work hard in silence and patience here. I think that for many of you, there is a lot of competition around your professional life. There's a lot of not particularly nice competition too, I would say, with work hard in silence. I think part of wearing a mask here is not showing all that you are yet because you have to wait for the right time and you need to prioritize what you do. So this feels to me like if it's not an environment where you've gone in with one idea and then it's not going as fast as you want, then and you need to reprioritize and rethink about what you want to do, then you are in an environment, and I think many of you are, where you need to keep your counsel. You need to hide your light a little bit until you're ready, and you need to prioritize your actions and be patient. It's not that you won't be successful. It's not that you can't accelerate career growth, but there's something about the environment at the moment that means that you have to be a bit cautious and a little bit more coy about what you're doing. So, and if you are in an environment, I'm getting, that literally is not going to let you go forward, you're never going to be able to succeed in the way that you want to for some reason, then it's time to start looking elsewhere. And obviously, you have to find a new job, you have to be able to pay the rent and everything. I'm not sort of saying something as precipitous as just getting up and leaving tomorrow. But if that's the case, if part of this blockage that you're feeling is not that you're being obstinate, but it's that you're being constrained too much, and that's exactly the energy here, where other people's ideas about you are forcing you into silence and into wearing a mask, then you may need to think about where you want to be career-wise. So let's use the tarot and let's look at, before we do that, I want to do combining energy. So firstly, I want to do combining energy between the two around astrology. So what sort of astrology energy would be good for you to be leveraging or understanding to help you accelerate both these areas of your life? Okay, so this is definitely saying that you should be in something that's quite creative. It is picking up that there could be romance, love, even children potentially around this if you're in a family, and your responsibilities to your children are things that you have to balance with the fifth house. But I'm thinking the fifth house in general is picking up creativity and it's picking up love. So the fifth house may be primarily looking at here and working at what is it that would be true love for you, what is romantic for you. And part of that, if you pick up Mercury and Uranus as energies, is a meeting of the minds that is truly inspirational. So if if you're in a relationship where your inspiration, your ideas and the way you want to communicate keeps getting blocked, then it probably says it's not the right relationship. It's blocking you from being who you are. If this is connecting over to career, then it says there is something creative that you want to do. So maybe you're in a very stultifying, conventional sort of job that doesn't feel right for you. Again, you want to create the new idea. You want to communicate the new idea. You want to move forward with something that is revolutionary in some way. But I think it is saying that this needs to be created and relationships matter for this. So you can't go in and just upend everything. You do need to keep your counsel, keep silence rather than talking until you're ready to either make a move away if that's the case, or make a move towards something that you really want to bring in, like when the feeling is right. Because there is a sense here that the block almost that you have personally could become externalized if you try to move too fast. You do actually need patience. So let's have a look at what spiritual energy could help you across these two dimensions. Okay, so firstly, listen. This is working hard in silence. This is understanding what is your stubbornness and what is the stubbornness of others. Really pay attention. You could be clairaudient too. So on a spiritual level, you could be getting information downloaded to you, since there is signs that are something that you would listen to. I'm also getting that you might hear songs playing on the radio, or you know, you'd be walking through a shopping centre and a song is playing and there's lyrics that really, really relate to this. Listen to those sorts of things. Listen to the stray thing that you hear as you walk past people at a cafe who are talking. There might be something they say that's like a bit of a message from the universe to you that they're even unconscious of. So there's something in there about listening and really understanding, and listening within to yourself and trusting yourself, because there's some healing that needs to be done. Something hasn't worked. A relationship hasn't worked. Your what you wanted to be in the world hasn't worked, and possibly even your work hasn't worked to date. But it can be healed. It can be healed by opening up to new possibilities and being prepared to put the work in and to wait for the right time for this revolutionary energy that I think is part of who you are. Okay, so let's have a look with tarot then at both blockages and challenges, which I'll put over here, and at blessings and opportunities over there. And this is across both areas. Moving these up so you can see them a bit better. Okay, so over in the personal, actually it's more than personal, this is just meant to be both. In the blockages and the challenges, I mean, I think a lot of it is actually personal, which is probably why I said that was a bit of a Freudian slip. There are difficult relationships around you. It's coming up as the Queen of Pentacles and the Knight of Wands reversed. So it could be two different people, or it could be two aspects of the same person. And it could be in a personal life, or it could be in your material life. But the Queen of Pentacles reversed is someone whose material support is not always to be relied on. And I'm getting the sense with the Two of Wands next to it that someone who likes to be agreed with at all costs. So if this is in your personal life, it could be like a mother, it could be a sister, it could be a friend, it could be a lover, but they want their way. And they don't commit to anything that isn't their way. And this is probably part of the sort of blockage that you're getting here about you can see more, you're starting to see more. Now, it could be you. It could be you, as I say, in which case you're getting in your own way of your own manifestation, because you want the universe to agree with you rather than looking at what the universe is trying to tell you. But I think for many of you, it's a difficult relationship. I think that there's family stuff here. I think there's friendship stuff here. I think there's competition. There may also be something around a lover or somebody in that kind of relationship with the Knight of Wands reversed. That could be someone who is fickle, someone who is kind of, I get a sense of sort of vain and wants all the attention and all the glory and so forth. And you're getting really pragmatic now. That's the good news out of all of this in terms of relationships, but maybe to the point of almost being cynical. The issue is to be still able to retain a concept that you could find the right connections and the right people to work with, the right people to be in relationships with. But this energy is this sort of stuck energy of competition, and I think it could make you cynical. So I think that's why Spirit wants you to really open up to new possibilities and listen for the signs, because you can heal from that. You can move out of that. It's not a pattern that has to keep recurring unless you make it recur. Over here around blessings, a different way of looking at things. The Hangman upside down is a new perspective, a new way of looking at things. With the Ace of Swords reversed, giving it time. It's like, don't come straight out and say it. So the Ace of Swords the right way up would be like that sort of Uranian energy, which we had astrologically. But with it reversed, it's really picking up that sense of work hard in silence at first. Keep your counsel. You look at things very differently to people, but ultimately that will help, because it's the thing that's going to define for you what is not making you happy in terms of work and personal relationships. So all of this, the blockage that you have at the moment, is meant to make you sit back, cool your jets a bit, watch the signs, and understand how much is you and how much is other people in stopping you manifesting what you want to manifest. Because once you've worked that out, you can really go through the healing and bring in what you want. Then you do have the new perspective. Then you've defined what you don't want, which is just as valuable sometimes as defining what you do, which then helps you find the right connections and the right steps to move forward, and the right masks to wear when you need to do it, to move from one professional situation to another, for instance. Okay, so let's have a look at some affirmation support for you as you go through this, because it's not the easiest journey, I have to say. So let's see what affirmation Spirit has for you, pile 2. Okay, you've always been happy, you only need to remember. Get out of this sort of either where people are boxing you in, get back to maybe almost what you really wanted to do as a child. There might be something there that really tells you who you are. Get back to what makes you happy. Just remember that. And if you've boxed yourself in, then find your way out. The light on the way out, the signs to look for is what used to make you happy, because you'll be able to reconnect with that. And don't worry if it takes a bit of time, or if things that you've tried haven't worked, because it says failure isn't fatal and success isn't final. Just keep going, but take your time. Really use this as a learning about what you don't want, so that you can move towards what you do want ultimately. What's the creative energy around you at the moment, pile 2? Well, this is funny. This came up for another reading. Meditation. For different reasons, I can see also why it relates here. Going within, looking for the signs, pay attention to the signs. And if you're not the sort of person who just picks those up, as I say, when you're walking through walking past a cafe or you're hearing songs, then meditation can help you. And it can also help you with patience and with being silent and waiting for the right time. So your creative energy comes from the meditative state, from the inner knowing, not from all the brouhaha that seems to be around you in your general life, or from other people's opinions. Okay, let's get some crystal chakra energy for you as well. Okay, so here's the crown chakra. So here's the sort of grace, here's the signs. If you are not someone who relates to the concept of spiritual knowing and everything, and I think many people who come to my readings may well be, so probably not, this is not as foreign to you as maybe some other people in the general populace. But if you are not someone who does that, you need to start to understand that you are connecting to the spiritual realm. You are getting a download. It's trying to make you remember who you are and how you were happy. And clear quartz with the crown chakra is about amplification and concentration. It's about focus, which also meditation will help you with. The affirmations are, I amplify my voice and speak with confidence. So when you're ready, that Mercury energy is going to work for you. When you're ready. And I concentrate on things that matter to me. So yeah, what matters to you? What made you happy? Not And remember, if you're the person who's put this block in because you thought there's only one way to be happy, think about the feeling of happiness and what comes from that, not from whatever this set of criteria. So move out of that and concentrate on the feeling, because get into your heart chakra, which is the other side of this. With bloodstone, we have flexibility and patience. So again, patience. Take your time. Make sure you're sure about what you're doing. Say, I am flexible. I don't have to get stuck in either a rut that somebody's pushed me in, or relationships that aren't working anymore, or even my own definition of what success or relationships are. I can be flexible, and I practice patience. I know and I trust, in other words, that when the time is right, I will be able to manifest what I want to manifest, both personally and professionally. Okay, so I'm going to finish off with Heart Code Oracle. So I'm going to have a card from the Relationship Heart Code Oracles, then from the Wellbeing, and then from the Career as final messages for you. So firstly, a final message from the Heart Code Oracles around relationships for you. And we've got attitude. And that's picking up this. It's whether it's your attitude or whether it's the attitude of others. And you'll know better than me, because this is a collective reading, whether this is stuff that's being put on you or whether it's stuff that you're putting on yourself, or some combination. Everything can shift with a shift in attitude. And I think the attitude is towards owning your heart and being happy and understanding how limitless you can be, not putting it all into a set criteria in one way or the other to please others or to please yourself, or some combination thereof. Let's ask about well-being. It says empathetic. Okay. So part of your capacity to connect with the crown chakra and downloads is that you're actually probably far more empathic than you maybe think. I suspect you don't realize how empathic you are. And maybe what is happening here is that you are losing sight of what would make you happy and your limitless possibilities by empathizing in and mirroring what other people want from you, feeling that that's how you manifest and so forth. I think you also pick up a lot from whatever this work environment is. Whatever your work career environment is, or if you're looking for work and you're finding it hard to find it, you have a lot of empathy around the energy for that. And I do think you need to find some boundaries if that's the case. And I do think you need to try and make sure, by listening to your internal knowing, what is you and what is the feelings or the desires of other people, because you absorb it so much. Pile 2. So lastly, a card around career for you. And we have mindset. So yeah, it's a very consistent reading. All that you need to do to accelerate your personal and professional growth and development and success is to have the right attitude, the right mindset, and to make sure it's yours, not something you've absorbed from somebody else, and to make sure that it's flexible enough to really make you happy and connect with the signs that you're hearing. That's all you need, and a bit of patience. But I think that this is a bit of a process to get there. So by the time you've actually sorted through all of that, the time for patience will be done, and you'll be able to move forward both personally and professionally with great confidence. So I hope that resonates for you, Pile 2, and I hope you enjoyed the reading. It's a little bit challenging, but I really think you've got it within you to do it. You just need to take that really strong, excellent mind and turn it towards yourself and turn it towards what you really want. If you did enjoy the reading, please like the video and subscribe. And if you care to share, I'd love to hear about it in the comments. Otherwise, I hope to see you in future readings. Welcome, Pile 3, to your reading. So these cards here are around personal development and these are around professional development. And I found in all of these readings there's a kind of a narrative connection between them, and this is no different. What is happening, well, actually what is happening over all of this is that I think the people who've come to this reading are people who are going through a major period of transition, both I think personally and also in their career. And they are in a situation where they're going to have to, or you're going to have to be able to go forward with faith and with a sense of who you are and what you want to promote in the world and so forth, while things come to the surface and while you learn about what the next step is. And I think that Spirit is saying that you are naturally able to make things stable. It's part of who you are. It might be why it feels, when it feels uncertain, it feels really weird, but you have a natural stability and natural equilibrium, which allows you to traverse the underworld in a way that many other people couldn't do, in a way that would actually scare other people or stop them in their tracks. But you can combine the wisdom of being able to go through a process of change and a process where things aren't clear, but knowing that you are always like a kind of a stable force in the middle of things, and that you can use what you learn from this and what you take from the changes around you and the unexpected to be something that you can further promote and build your business. And I will talk about what particular type of business and area I think you would particularly excel in a minute. But there is just that overarching sense that you are someone who can be the calm in the middle of a storm. But you don't necessarily know that about yourself. You don't always feel that comfortable, but ultimately underneath you have a wisdom and a sense of faith that allows you to go through transitions and so forth and wait for the information to come through, to go through. It could be the dark night of the soul with the underworld there, but I think this isn't so much that as a transition or a waiting period. I think you're someone who both personally and professionally is a change agent and also goes through changes. I think with your personal life, you go through periods of time and change as you evolve and you learn and so forth, and you are comfortable in a way with ambiguity in a way that other people aren't, and that is one of your great strengths. And relying on that and knowing, as I say, that you have that stability in the 3D world and in the professional world, I think is really helpful for you to maintain that faith. You may be, I can't think of the term, it's the clair that is where you can smell things. It's escaping me at the moment, but one of the clair senses is a sense of smell, where you smell perfume, where you smell flowers, things like that. You may literally get information that way with the perfume of Sophia. Sophia is the divine feminine, the divine wisdom. I mean, you've got wisdom there, and you've got stability there, and you've got faith there. There is a true wisdom to you. And I think that it could for some of you process in that way. Pay attention to that. Also, if you're feeling, particularly on a personal level, if you're feeling like kind of uncomfortable and unsure, maybe the use of aromatherapy, perfumes and things like that could really help you. You could be someone who that really lifts your mood or grounds you or centers you or helps you sleep. There's something around that that's helpful for you in really going through this process. But the main thing is to be comfortable with having faith that you can go into the underworld. And you're not likely, I mean, it's interesting we have a pomegranate here. That's a reference, obviously, to Persephone, who went into the underworld, ate the pomegranate, so had to keep going back. Now, some of you may cyclically go through this, as I say. It may be part of who you are. So the concept of Persephone going into the underworld being like when winter happens. You may be someone who's your personal energy is very much dictated by cycles of the moon, cycles of the seasons and so forth. But I do think it is saying that you have the wisdom and the faith, not necessarily to take too much of that with you and bring too much of that with you, but to be able to be still and let things unfold. Some of you may have been through a very complex or tricky relationship. And that could be, this sort of energy could be around twin flames, karmic, soulmate sort of issues, or even some pretty significant mother-daughter stuff with that Persephone sort of feeling and so forth, and with the divine feminine. It could be significantly positive, like Demeter with Persephone, or it could be significantly tricky and difficult if there's any kind of competition. So you will know whether that relates to you or not, but there's something about the divine feminine, there's something about nurturing, there's something about creativity. But really, to accelerate your personal development, it's becoming more and more understanding of the fact that you can deal with this sort of stuff, this ambiguity, this strangeness and so forth, with a wisdom and a stability that others can't. Then that comes over into your business world. So if you ever feel stuck professionally or unsure professionally, what this is saying with Dark Harlequin is take on that energy and work out what that tells you might want to do. You know, it might be something really left of center. It might be something different. Just moving forward and having the faith that you will be able to keep it stable and using really, really excellent promotional skills. You are a natural promoter of what you do. You may well use social platforms or a web-based business to do it. If not, it's suggesting that the social platforms may well be a way to progress your career or your business in some way, to promote it, to find the next great job, whatever that might be. You do like stability, whatever you do in terms of professional development, you know that you want a solid grounding with it. But I think this is saying that really, really highlight what is eccentric and different about you and just move forward, act. Even when things aren't clear, act, but act in this space, act in promoting your ideas, communicating your ideas and so forth, understanding the stability or the structure of the environment that you're in, because you have a really good instinct for that. That's part of your wisdom. That way you can bring in the new and promote the new, because you understand what's almost the scaffolding with the stability there that has to be there to, well, in fact, it looked to me like scaffolding, but that's actually gold bullion by the looks of things when I look at it again. But I think to me that also looks like the scaffolding of a house. So that sense of understanding the structure of the environment you're in so that you can bring in the new and be a bit quirky. So there is a kind of a essence of understanding and trusting your wisdom and your capacity to bring in the new, but not to burn everything all out before you. You're not a change agent in the sense of like a tsunami coming through and then you fix up everything afterwards. You are somebody who builds on what exists and brings in the new that way. And that same energy can help you personally as well. So let's have a look at some astrology energy around you, pile 3. You're a very interesting person, I have to say. It's a very interesting energy. You're the sort of person I'd like to work with in an organisation if there was a lot of change going on, because I just think your sense about the pace and the direction to make the best out of that would be really on point. See what astrology is around you. Okay, so I'm going to deal out some more cards for the conjunction to see what this sort of conjunction energy is. But first of all, new moon absolutely fits the new. You are meant to bring in the new. And it's interesting because it's talking about the seeding, planting what you desire and so forth. And it feels a bit like within your personal life and even to some extent within your career when things are not yet clear, that's when you plant your new ideas and you promote them and you nurture them and you grow them. And around your personal life, it's like you plant ideas about where you want relationships to go, and that's the way you start to see how they grow and whether they're going to meet what you need. A large chunk of this is around your career. I actually think many of your significant personal relationships will connect to your career as well too, because that feels like it's bridging the two. You may have significant relationships, love relationships, friendships, even relationships with your family members within a career aspect, potentially with the 10th house there. The planet that rules it is Saturn, so there is definitely a sense of that stability there. Part of your genius for this is your stability. We've also got conjunctions, so there are some energies that are operating really well together. So I'm going to just shuffle the cards again, and I'm going to deal out till I get a couple of planets or asteroids to see what are particularly harmonious energies for you in accelerating your personal and professional growth. Venus is one. So that's the divine feminine energy, definitely. Venus and Chiron. Okay, so Venus is the love energy. It's the divine feminine. It's the Empress bringing in material abundance, and that's definitely there. Chiron is the wounded healer. I think this is you being able to, as I say, keep your head when everybody around you is losing theirs, so to speak. This is you being able to heal and move forward and bring new growth to something when change has occurred that has been a bit unstable or a little bit unclear. But it is also saying that this is just something to be aware. It's a little bit of a warning for you around the personal, because you have faith and you're very wise and you're prepared to deal with the darker aspects of things. Don't transmute your love nature into always healing somebody. If some of this energy over here I'm getting is around, a twin flame or a soulmate where the person is going through a hell of a lot and all you ever feel like you're doing is healing that person, be careful of that. Make sure you have the boundaries and that you don't get drawn into it, because in a weird way that might be how you eat the pomegranate and you end up staying in the underworld. So just be careful, because you have a natural loving and healing nature, that if you're in a complex relationship that you don't have that taken advantage of, even if it's unconsciously. All right, let's have a look at some spiritual support for you around this. Okay, I do think some of you, this is going to be picking up some significant relationship. Could be really good, if you can, to do both your astrology charts and do what they call a composite chart, which looks at the nature of the relationship. I'm definitely getting a feeling, if you related to what I was just saying about you maybe keep ending up taking up the healing role in significant relationships in your life, you may want to make sure that there's more of a balance when you feel attracted to people, whether it's in a love relationship or a friendship or whatever it might be. If you aren't an astrologer, you may benefit from learning it, because there's something about this wisdom and faith and seeing the patterns of things. Equally, getting your astrology chart done or knowing an astrologer could be helpful. You are good at the law of attraction. This is partly because you are stable in change. Because I think what can happen is when change is occurring around manifestation, that's when we start to doubt usually, and that's where we could let the energy go. But if you understand the stability as at the core of that, and you allow the rest to evolve and grow as it's going to, and then you promote what you're trying to get out of it, then you get the best out of it. Okay, so let's now look at some tarot for you. Let's have a look with tarot over here at blockages and challenges, and over here at blessings and opportunities. So this is to give us a little bit more information on how you can accelerate your personal and professional growth by removing blockages and leveraging opportunities. Okay, so this is interesting because this on the face of it looks like, oh, that should be good. You know, you've only really got one reversal, you know, you got the sun. But I think this is telling me that there's quite a lot of competition around you. You are either going to be the Queen of Swords or the Queen of Wands. You don't have to be a woman for this. It's just energy. Or it could be that there are those sorts of energies around you that are competitive. That's why I felt like with some of you there's complex relationships with your mother or with other female people in your life, or people, doesn't even have to be female, it could just be people with a strong feminine aspect to it. And I feel as though what happens is that the more you shine, the more you're criticized by the other person. The more that they get to rule how you do things, the less you shine. There's a kind of a mental game going on somewhere with one or more relationships in your life, and the person tries to control you through ideas. I think that they know that you're wise in many ways. I think they know that you will respond to that. But I think that they're quite jealous of the way that you can shine. And in a weird way, it's the way that keeps you in the underworld when otherwise you would come out from that and be able to sort of work with it. When it works positively, when you could shift past this and get good relationships, then with the sun, that feels like summer. It feels like, again, the Persephone myth where Persephone comes out and returns to Demeter. So that's a positive maternal figure. So when that is in balance, it works well. But I think this is telling there's a blockage at the moment. And it might even be that it was a fantastic relationship, you know, whether it's a love relationship or a parental relationship or a friendship, but it is time to separate for some reason. And maybe that's part of the thing that's making things hard. It's hard to do that. But again, you have to have faith that you can stand on your own 2 feet. It's important for you to come into your queendom, so to speak. But I feel like there are others around you at the moment who are unhappy to let go of that role in your life in some way. That's why over here, what appears to be a blockage, which is the 5 of Pentacles, is a blessing. That sense of being okay with being alone, that sense with being okay to standing on your own 2 feet and knowing that you can be stable, that there's sort of, particularly around resources or changes that are very material, that you will come through that. What comes after the 5 of Pentacles is the 6 of Pentacles, where there is a better energy exchange operating, and understanding here about what didn't work for you emotionally so that you can move into something that's more emotionally fulfilling. There's at least one relationship, I think. And I do think for many of you that your career and your relationships connect in some way. But even if they don't, there's a relationship issue. So it could be over here. There's something that is not returning what it could return. And part of it is because you are so empathic, which we said before. understanding that and getting that into balance and getting that more stable is actually a blessing. Learning this now is a blessing, because I feel like it's saying that the wisdom that's coming through to you and the change that's coming through you and your capacity to stabilize others through change and promote and build things, you are coming into knowing who you are and how you can navigate these things. And you had to go through this to know that about yourself. Okay. So let's see if we've got some affirmations energy for you, because again, it's a bit of a tricky energy, but I think you're well on your way to doing it. But what sort of affirmations can we give you for your personal and professional growth? Okay, don't squeeze a dream too tightly. It must breathe to live. So don't worry too much. I do think you're naturally stable, whether it's in your career or even in a relationship. It's there. Don't worry about that. Have faith. And let it become what it's going to do. Let that seeding energy occur and let it grow. And when you stop being normal, you see how amazing you are. So I think, as I say, that people who are competitive with you will try and constrain you, particularly in how you view yourself, in your attitudes to yourself, in the way you define yourself. But remember, that wisdom is not common. And remember, that capacity to be in the chaotic and yet still be stable and find new growth is also amazing. It's not normal, but that's okay. You know, you don't have to be normal. You just have to leverage your strengths. So let's see what you can create, or creative energy is around you, or creative advice for you. Voice. Okay, yeah. You are going to eventually have to speak out. You are eventually going to have to be the promoter of what's coming in. And if there are competitions, speak your truth and who you are. Don't let somebody else always have the final say. It might make them happy and make that relationship okay, but it's not going to really open up the growth that you could have in the 3D in any aspect of your life. So to help you, let's get some crystal chakra energy. This one definitely wanted to come out. Okay, so we've got the heart chakra, you know, caring your dream, caring about what you want. And a lot of this does come from relationships. I do think for many of you, it's not going to be everybody, I guess, but for many of you, there's a connection between your career and professional development and your relationships in some way. Maybe even your career is about relationships in some way. Anyway, with the heart chakra there with malachite, we have release and guidance. So this is releasing something. This process, this trip into the underworld is about releasing something. And the affirmations are, I release past traumas. So if you are relating to some sort of difficult relationship, it is time to start letting that go, because it is getting in the way of who you could be. And I seek guidance from my higher self. Yes, because you're wise. Sophia is connecting to you. You can't get much wiser than that. So really connect into that. And then the sacral chakra, which is about creativity, then you can start to manifest and create things. And we have success and self-confidence with carnelian there. And the affirmations are, I attract success into my life and I am confident in the decisions I make. Yes, be confident, promote what you're doing, even when things aren't clear. You have that capacity. It's not common. It's not even normal, really, to be in the eye of the storm, as I say, and to create something that is going to grow and be stable, even when everything else is sort of up in the air. You're the absolute perfect change agent on that level, or new business builder or something like that. So to finish off, I want to use the Heart Code Oracles, and I'm going to use one from the relationship deck, one from Wellbeing, and one from Career for you. So firstly, what advice do we have for you around relationships? And we have Commitment. I think that might have come up for one of the other readings. And I think the same thing that I felt there, I'm sure it did. It's about commitment to yourself and commitment to your journey and to your faith and your belief and your wisdom. Because I do feel, I mean, if you have relationships that go through this and work out and work for you, then by all means commit to them. But do not commit to relationships that require you to fit a particular way of being and so forth, or always sit subordinate to somebody else. Commit to yourself as this first point. And let's look at Wellbeing. Actually got two, so I'm going to put the two out. So I've got hearing and I've got empathetic. That's interesting. Empathetic came out as well too. I think some of you may have gone to 2 readings. And the empathetic is picking up here with the King of Cups sort of thing, where maybe you are, your capacity to look after other people and that Chiron energy. It can be a wonderful thing and something that makes you understand things and keep things stable and promote to the right people and all that sort of thing. But it can also be used by others who want you to do what they want you to do. So make sure you keep your boundaries right about that. And maybe that's why we've got hearing as well. And I think hearing is about really listening to your inner knowing and listening to what's being said, because there's something about over here in the obstacles about the way that words are used, the way that arguments are used, and they're used to potentially beguile or control you in some way. So listen very carefully and understand what's going on, because it can affect your well-being, your sense of being able to deal with all of this if you get too drawn into other people's dialogue and other people's way of looking at the world rather than your own. Okay, and lastly, let's get a card for career. We've got promotion. Well, that's probably a very good, firstly, promotion. Part of it is that you are the world's consummate promoter. That is something that you will always do well with in whatever it is, whatever you promote. But I actually think it could be suggesting you'll get a promotion at the end of whatever this change process is, because you will be seen as a leader and someone stable and someone who could keep their head. Again, the only thing that could get in the way of that is if you let people take the credit. So don't let people take the credit for what you do. You can share credit and that always looks good, but don't let people just take the credit. Use your voice there to make sure, and you can do that. You can self-promote as well. Once you really unshackle yourself from the demands of others and you really understand this genius that you have, you'll be able to self-promote as well too, and that will certainly accelerate your professional and your personal development. So I hope that was helpful, Pile 3, and I hope it resonated for you. If so, please like the video and subscribe, and if you care to share what this means to you, I'd love to hear about it in the comments. Otherwise, I hope to see you in future readings.